Another day, another dogfight with some awesome industry heavyweights. How's it going, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and in one hand, I've got the Apple iPhone 5. In the other hand, I have the international HTC One X. Which one's going to win in a dogfight? We'll find out. But first, special thanks to our partners at Best Buy Mobile for giving us devices like this for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game, which we turn around and give to you on the site at instantwin.phonedog.com. When you go into Best Buy Mobile to get either of these devices, you'll walk out without dealing with any rebates, paperwork, waiting 8 to 10 weeks for a debit card. You'll walk out the door paying the after rebate price. Let's take a look. Is it the iPhone 5 or is it the One X that's worthy of a gold medal? We'll find out in the dogfight, which starts right now. Another day, two hot, high-end smartphones in the marketplace. This is the Apple iPhone 5. We've been waiting for it for a long time. It's finally here, and it's available on Sprint, AT&T, and Verizon in 16, 32, and 64 gigabyte flavors in black and in white. It's a lot of information for $199, $299, and $399, depending on your individual price point. Available now, hard to find in some places, but definitely available. It's packing 4G LTE, and on top of that, it's got an Apple A6 CPU that's clocked around 1.3 gigahertz. It's a dual-core processor, a larger 4-inch Retina display, an 8-megapixel camera, and you'll notice the design is a little bit revised as well. You've got a metal back on there. You've got a slightly thinner and lighter design here. You've got a little bit of a bigger battery capacity, at least 1,440 milliamp hours, but you get about equal calling time and standby time on LTE as you did on the previous device, the iPhone 4S. Then you have the HTC One X. This is the international version. I do not have an AT&T review unit in the house right now, but the international one has a 1.5 gigahertz quad-core NVIDIA Tegra 3 processor, a 4.7-inch Super LCD. It's an HD display, and then you've got an 8-megapixel camera on the back here with 1080p HD video recording. This shoots 1080p as well. Then you get a 1,800 milliamp hour non-removable battery. This is one of HTC's One devices that was announced in February at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Joins the X, or excuse me, the X joins the S and the V, and a couple of new devices that are coming a little bit later in the year, namely the One X Plus, which is replacing this device in a sense on AT&T with some new specs. So like anything in the mobile world, in 3 months, both of these devices may be outdated. The good thing about the iPhone, at least out of the gate, is you know that when you buy an iPhone, you probably got a year, at least using Apple's historical launch cycle, you got a year before you have to worry about a new iPhone coming out. So if you've got this, you're most likely set for 12 months. That said, feature-wise, a lot of people like Android because of the feature set, because of the software, but you're dealing with every couple of updates feeling outdated in a lot of cases. So that's something to keep in mind. Android 4.0 over here with HTC Sense version 4, and then over here Apple's iOS version 6, which functionally, and at least cosmetically speaking, hasn't changed a whole lot since 2007. You get some new features. I'll show you these. For example, you got, of course, LTE, but you've got some new stuff, the notifications area. You've got new updates here. You can tap to tweet and do Facebook updates directly from the device itself. So there have been these incremental updates over the years, but still not a whole lot in comparison to other operating systems on the market when you look at like the evolution from gingerbread to ice cream sandwich, for example, as opposed to iOS 5 to iOS 6. That said, out of the gate, you do get some carrier installed, or actually you don't, I take that back, on either one of these devices. If you go with the AT&T device, you do get some AT&T stuff pre-installed out of the gate, but let's just walk through and see what these devices look like out of the gate. First of all, you have notification bars on both of these devices, as you can see here. You got LTE over here. On the AT&T version, it has LTE. The international version has HSPA Plus on AT&T, which is what I'm operating on right now, a mixture between HSPA and HSPA Plus. Again, unlocked international version over here, so it has the quad-core Tegra 3 processor. The US version has a Snapdragon S4 CPU over here. So again, you've got this, the notifications bar area, and again, iOS 6 looks very similar. Apple's Maps here in place, and we'll go over here so you can take a look. Apple's Maps in place of a Google solution that we've seen for so long on the iOS side. They got rid of Google's map solution. They've gone with Apple's solution. It's been ridiculed in the press a little bit, but still, overall, it's a pretty decent Maps application, though it does have some growing pains. So, of course, you've got Dallas here. We'll zoom in. You can see, of course, you can use navigation turn by turn. You've got an area to look up addresses, and then down here you can drop a pin, print, show traffic, or you can see a hybrid or a satellite. And for example, I can bring in this area, and we'll come back down into Dallas. And then we'll go to 3D, and you can see once I bring it in, I can bring it down into 3D, flip it around, do anything I want to here with the map. A little bit of checkerboarding, but that's okay. And we can come up here, for example, to Highland Park, and we can zoom it in, and you can see it's kind of a 3D model here, and then when I hit right here, it'll let me know where I'm at. I'm not in Dallas at this moment, but I can use the current location, and it brings me up in Uptown Charlotte, as you can see here, pretty quickly and pretty easily. So overall, it's a decent map solution. It's been ridiculed a lot in the press, and it definitely has issues, but again, and it's very atypical of Apple to have issues with anything that they launch, at least for them to admit that they have issues, but they did apologize for some of the maps issues. Check those out on the site if you're wondering. Over here, typical setup. HTC Sense version 4 is a nice upgrade, especially for Sense users of the past. You got your notifications bar up here with a shortcut and a clear button and settings button. Then you got frequent and downloads down here, and of course you can see a nice carousel effect. And really, when you look at Sense 4, my first thought here is they've taken Sense 3, Sense 3.5, and they pared down some of those obnoxious effects that were in Sense 3 and 3.5, where if you spun it too fast, it spun around all the time. They've taken a lot of that down. They've really pared down the clock and made it look a lot cleaner. They're utilizing the fonts and ice cream sandwich. It just overall looks much better than Sense versions of the past. You got your same 7 home screens here, and something that you do have here that you don't have on iOS is the ability to add widgets. For example, the clock widget here with the weather, people widget, and more. And you got 7 different home screens where you can do that, whereas over here, basically, it's just a collection of applications. You can scroll back and forth, and you can have a bunch of different pages, but outside of that, in the search page over here, all you have is applications and a dock with some shortcuts. You don't have the ability to add widgets for quick access to information like contacts. What I can do, though, is press and hold one of the home screens, and it brings up my widget kind of a dock here, my widget panel, if you will. 7 home screens down here. I've got 3, as you can see right here. They're empty, and I can add something like bookmarks, and when I press and hold, you'll see this one lights up red to tell me there's no space, but I can just add these as I see fit, bookmarks, and I can really customize these to my liking. So for example, I can press it and hold it, and I can change around the size and make it my own over here, for example. So I can scroll back and forth, make it my own size, so I can add something else to the bottom of this if I want to. And you can, like that, you can really make this device your own, and that's something that I've always appreciated about HTC. They do a great job with customization, and the One X, both the international version and the AT&T version, are no different in that department. So for example, calendar, we can bring it over here, and obviously it loads up, and you can see here, bam, loads up in full screen mode, but I can shorten it or shrink it down a little bit, and then I can move it over here to this other home screen, or should be able to move it over to this other home screen. Let's see if I can or not. Yep, bam, and then perfect. I've got space for both. So I can really customize this and make this device my own. TouchWiz does a good job at this. Motorola's most recent user interface does a great job of this. And then of course the stock Android 4.0 widgets can be customized as well. So again, press and hold, apps and shortcuts you can also access, and then you can customize by how you want your widgets to show up. So if you want to see, for example, calendar widgets, but you only want to see HTC calendar widgets, you can come through here and see you got a month widget, an agenda widget, and then you have a smaller widget over here that you can add to a home screen, for example, and make it your own. So again, another calendar widget over there on the desktop, but 7 home screens there. And then out of the gate, you get the typical Google stuff, Google Plus integration, Gmail, you get Play Store, and then you get, you should be able to get like Play Music, Play Books, etc. And then you've got, of course, Wi-Fi hotspot capabilities, even on the international version, and some static buttons up here, Search, Play Store, and Menu. Now, let's take a look over here as well, because again, Maps isn't the only thing that's new on iOS 6. You also get the ability to add something called Passbook. Now, as it says here, Passbook is the simplest way to get all your passes in one place. That's very well and good. Passbook is the greatest idea, especially for a frequent traveler. I flew 107,000 miles last year. Passbook is the greatest idea ever. It's not implemented well on iOS 6, though. For example, I can come in here to the App Store, and I can download stuff like American Airlines. I can download stuff like United, I can download Walgreens and more and access Passbook that way. But unfortunately, unless I have a boarding pass, unless I'm going to buy something, or unless I have movie tickets right on that day, it doesn't show up. And I can really see a great place where I could load up Passbook and it would show me my American Airlines frequent flyer balance. It would show me that I'm gold or platinum and show me my miles. And then United, same thing as well. It doesn't have to just show me the boarding pass. And I see that that's awesome. I see the ability and I see the reason why they might have done that, but I would love to see this expand out in the next few months, where Passbook, I can click on it and it'll just show me things like that. I can see my balances with Walgreens. I can see how many points I have with Walgreens, or how many points I have at the grocery store. Things like that. It's got a lot of potential, and I'm hoping that they'll realize that in the future. Also changes to the App Store as well over here. You'll notice featured, charts, Genius Search, and updates. And of course here are some of my apps for Passbook. Lufthansa, MLB, Sephora, but again, Target and more, Ticketmaster. But like I said, it's got to be a ticket on that day, or it's got to be a ticket to fly, or it's got to be something, with the exception of Walgreens, which does always show your information right there on the gate, or right there out of the gate rather. United, American, it's all about having a pass on that day, which I think is just not the best way to maximize Passbook functionality. So Twitter as well, integration, like I said, from the notifications bar, so you can do the tweet stuff here, and you can do Facebook as well. And I'll show you on the AT&T iPhone 5 I have, just because I forgot to configure this prior to going on camera. But you can see here, here's what it looks like when you got tap to tweet and then tap to post there as well. So you can do those there, and then tap to tweet, all I have to do is click on it. It brings up a Twitter prompt, and I can type something, and I can add my location, I can send directly from iOS 6. And of course, some new settings in the settings menu area as well. Do not disturb is one of my favorites. So we'll go into notifications and configure this. I really like this because you can schedule do not disturb for a certain time. So let's say 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. I don't want my phone to ring because, and I can never do this as an editor or somebody that runs a publication, but let's say from 11 to 5, don't want my phone to ring, don't want, this is totally hypothetical, don't want press releases to come through. I laugh as I say it because there's no way we could run a business that way. But for those that can, it's a really nice feature, and you can allow calls from favorites. So mom, dad, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, etc. You can allow those calls, and you can do repeated calls as well. So if a second call comes through, somebody's calling for an emergency, somebody's in the hospital, heaven forbid, they can call twice in a row, and when that second call rings through, you can take advantage of that, and it will actually ring through. So do not disturb, great feature here that I think is not maximized enough in the reviews. And also you'll see, speaking of, the phone application has been changed as well. You'll see some new color tones, a new dial pad here, and it just looks clean and refreshed as opposed to previous versions of iOS. That said, not a whole lot has changed here. Very little, in fact. Again, you'll see some stuff in camera as well. You can see a larger camera button, and then you have the option for stuff like panorama, which we'll talk about in part 2. But let's jump very quickly into messaging. I'm going to pull this away, and we'll talk to the quick brown fox, and we'll say, how are you today? Not Howard. Now, I mentioned this in the review, still having some issues with the iPhone 5 here. The keyboard just seems a little bit sticky to me. I'm having really huge issues with touch gesture navigation, or touch gesture input, if you will, especially when I deal with Q or P or 1 or 0 or stuff at the very top. I'm really finding, and I don't know how much of this is iOS 6 and how much of this is the individual touchscreen technology now, where they've separated, instead of having a panel of glass and a touchscreen, now it's all fused into one. So that may be an issue as well. Maybe the fact that it's manufactured a different way. But I do see stuff like when I try to type event over and over again, I get a different word, as you can see here, every single time. So it just seems like touchscreen responsiveness is very off on the iPhone 5. Hopefully they'll fix that in a future software update. But what I will say, 4-inch display here, still nice and fast from portrait to landscape, so overall fluidity is still decent. But again, the touchscreen stuff, definitely a problem, especially given that this device historically has done a great job with that. 4-inch display means it should be a little bit easier to type on. That said, I think they waste a lot of screen real estate space. You'll notice there's just more gray areas. So realistically, the keyboard's about the same size as you would expect it to be on the iPhone 4S with its 3.5-inch display. No real changes to the keyboard size. Now, over here, 4.7-inch display, and let's go back over here and load up this demo. This was a test number. This is one of my demo units. So, and you'll see Sense keyboard, Sense 4 keyboard. Portrait to landscape, nice and fast, and overall they've improved this, though hopefully in future versions they'll get rid of the arrows down there at the bottom. So we can go, how are you today? This is a test. Overall, pretty easy to type on, and of course you can download alternatives, unlike the iPhone, from Google Play, things like the Jelly Bean keyboard, the Ice Cream Sandwich keyboard, and more.